And this belief that elections are what will free you is not true. When people are corrupt, they control how elections happen. They control the results. They control the judiciary. They control parliament. They control cabinet. They control the media and all levers of power in society. And where do you go? And I'm not suggesting that you should be violent, but I'm suggesting that when those spaces are closed, it's not now, I don't know when, you will feel the pinch. When those spaces are closed for our workers to be human, to get benefits from what they suffer for underground and elsewhere, when our young people know that they have no future under this system, and when those institutions of the state can no longer protect you, it is not a crime to seek other means to overthrow a government. It would be a sin to allow a sinful, evil state to destroy generations while you tolerate it, while you watch. The sin would not be turning against that system. The sin is watching it and tolerating it. When our people are condemned for the next 400 years.
This video has been taking the rounds in the social media I am in. And it has received a lot of good reception, if you want. The truth of the matter is, Zimbabwe has gone through that already. We are talking of 44 years after independence. We know Zanu PF has been rigging elections. They've known that all along. In fact, if there was a point when we learned it, it was in the mid-1990s. This is when the nation finally accepted that the Zanu PF thugs are rigging the elections. They are corrupt, they are incompetent, and they're tyrants. And in some cases, murderous tyrants too. The nation came to a consensus then that we needed to change the system. The options were, we can either have another armed struggle to remove Zanu PF from office, because Zanu PF is not going to walk out of office now that they've tested power and they love it. The other option was that we should elect opposition leaders who will implement the democratic reforms to make sure that we have got free, fair, and credible elections. The nation, and rightly so, I would say, opted for the second option. And so, since the late 1990s, the rallying call in Zimbabwe has been democratic change. We need democratic change in Zimbabwe. Morgan Tsvangirai and his friends seized on that call and promised the nation that they will deliver the democratic change the nation was dying for. They named their party Movement for Democratic Change for that very purpose. They had the golden opportunity to implement those democratic reforms during the golden years of the GNU, 2008 to 2018. They failed to implement even one reform. The tragedy here is that the people themselves failed to realize what was going on. The GNU was the golden opportunity for Zimbabwe to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. We did not, because Morgan Tsvangirai and his friends were corrupt and incompetent. Mugabe had no problem bribing them with the trappings of high office, and they forgot all about the reforms. As the one would say in Shona. The tragedy here is the people themselves failed to realize that MDC leaders sold out. Even now, with the benefit of hindsight, they don't say it. It's all very well saying Zanu PF has captured the judiciary, the police, the army, etc., etc. We need to end that capture. If you have not paid any attention on what is it that you need to do to end that state capture, it is not rocket science. It just needs a bit of effort. People should know what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. For instance, if we are saying we want free, fair, and credible elections, we should have a situation where everyone who is eligible to vote has the opportunity to vote without any coercion. That's not rocket science. And the rules are laid down to help us achieve that. We must have a voters' roll, and the voters' roll should be available for inspection by all. A verified voters' roll. Zimbabwe, in 44 years since independence, has never had a verified voters' roll. And yet people have participated in those flawed elections. Because, as last year, they believed Chamisa had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. He was going to win those elections without a verified voters' roll. People believed him. Of course, that was nonsense. Chamisa and company were supposed to implement the democratic reforms to make sure that in future, ZEC produce verified voters' roll. In the 5 years of the GNU, they had implemented not even one token reform. So ZEC remained captured by Zanu PF, and they went along with that. And last year, Chamisa was saying, even with that, with ZEC captured by Zanu PF, I can still win big these flawed elections. And the people were foolish enough to believe him. This is our problem. Zimbabwe has moved on. It's not that we don't know that Zanu PF has captured the ZEC, the police, the judiciary, etc., etc. We know that. We've known that for the last 24 years. What we have failed to know is what to do about it. And we have failed to answer that question because we have failed to also understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. And as long as we don't know what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections, it is no surprise that both Zanu PF and the opposition, MDC, CCC, have exploited that weakness. If we understood what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections, we would not be making the same mistake over and over again. We would not be participating in an election process that is so flawed. It is clear that Zanu PF is rigging. And we also know that if we participate, we'll only be giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And yet we still continue participating. I restate this point. SADC and the AU election observers, one of the things they noted was that the Zimbabwe elections last year, for instance, were flawed because they failed to even meet Zimbabwe's own constitutional requirements and electoral law. And one of those areas was to have a verified voters roll. Are we really saying that we need a SADC in the AU election observers to tell us that? That's common sense. Tim Pachedu showed that the voters roll was in shambles. Why did we, 2 million Zimbabweans, participate in last year's elections when there was not even a verified voters roll? And we did. SADC election observers condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. But SADC, as the regional body, did not go the next step and deny Zanu PF political legitimacy because Zimbabweans had participated in those flawed elections in their millions. Why did we participate in a flawed process that is so flawed? We knew there's no way Zanu PF will lose those elections. Zanu PF cannot lose elections in which they've got a free hand to rig. If you don't even have something as basic as a verified voters roll, who knows who is voting? Who knows who has been denied the vote? Zanu PF. How could they possibly lose such an election? We are our own worst enemies. We are so naive and ignorant and gullible that we are easily conned into believing we can participate in a flawed election and win. Even after 44 years. Albert Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We have been participating in flawed elections for the last 44 years and expect the opposition to win. That is insanity at a national level. Zimbabweans are looking at preparing for the 2028 elections. Forget about getting any reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging those elections. That will not happen. Zanu PF will never reform itself out of office. The opposition are busy enjoying the few gravy train seats that the regime gives out to entice them to participate. They are not going to force the regime to implement any meaningful reforms. The way out for the people of Zimbabwe is for them to wake up to the reality that they cannot keep on participating in a flawed election process only to give Zanu PF political legitimacy. It is up to Zimbabweans themselves to do that. There is absolutely no excuse in participating in flawed elections when you know that will only gives Zanu PF legitimacy. You will not change anything. You only give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate your own suffering. An idiot is somebody who can be defined as somebody who would act and shoot themselves in the foot. They don't, because they don't even know what is in their own best interest. And the village idiot is one who will act in such a way that they not only injure themselves, but injure others as well. The 2 million Zimbabweans who participated in last year's elections, disregarding the warning that it is an act of futility to do so, have ended up condemning the whole nation to suffer the consequences of yet another 5 years of Zanu PF dictatorship. When are we going to end this madness? I think it is high time people of Zimbabwe look themselves in the mirror and decide that this madness must be stopped. We can't keep on participating in an election process that is clearly so flawed, so illegal, that the only thing you're doing there is giving Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuating our own suffering. Think about it. Thank you and have a nice day.